Hello, my name is Igor Rodriguez, and I would like to give some answer to some question using this video. We are talking about American literature. As first point, we have the way or how the period in which American literature is divided in the 12 important moments with their own characteristic. I will try to be very briefly in this kind of explanation. As first one, we have the early American period. Begins with oral literature of Native Americans. No written literature among the more than 500 tribes before European came. Some characteristic in this period, the tribes maintained their own religion, worshipping gods, animal, plant, or sacred person. Example of American Indian literature: lyric, chants, myth, fairy tales, humorous anecdote, incantation, riddles, proverbs, and more. Um, Nowadays, we have in our vocabulary, when we use the English, Indian words that include canoe, tobacco, potato, moccasin, moose, permission, raccoon, tomahawk, and totem. It is very important to say the Native American stories show a deep respect for nature because they believe in this kind of force in the nature. They contained special force. Good. The next one period is Puritanism or colonial. Okay, this is very important period because when the European came to America, in this case we're talking about America as a USA, in that little part where they settled, they saw how the people were living, and they decided to purify using the Church of England law. Okay, so the Puritan left the colonized the New World as a settler, and they record experience through diaries and historical accounts. Uh, Also, we have the revolutionary age of reason, enlightenment. In this moment, the writers understand the world around them through the reason and deduction rather than the faith. So the literature begin to use to send a lot of message to open mind of the people. Okay, so in that moment, in that period, was frequently satirical and spectacle moment for this kind of art. The next period we have is the Romanticism and American Gotham. Right here, the experience and the imagination take place. The individual freedom and worth were paramount, and poetry was seen as the highest expression of the mind. Okay, the next period is a transcendentalism. Transcendentalism. Well, here advocates self-reliance and individualism over authority and conformity to tradition. Um, this movement commonly reflect on nature and unify divine spirit common to all people and community. The next period is a realism, naturalism, and regionalism. Well, the most important thing here is a special moment that we call the Industrial Revolution. Okay, because the people start to reorganize the life. Okay, every single detail, and all the ordinary people, including local color, while also seeking to explain human behavior. Okay, so it's very important this period. The next one is the modernism. Began as extension of realism, but made forward to break with literature, literary and poetic tradition. Authors of this area were bold and experimental in style. of course, they start to use a lot of information in all characterization in the modernism literature. So that is very important. Okay, we are talking about here the World War First in Europe. The next period is the Lost Generation, Jazz Age, Roaring Twenties, and the Harlem Renaissance. Okay, Renaissance. Excuse me. Alongside modernism, African American culture in Harlem, New York, flourishing. Okay, in this moment, and they use the art of music as a jazz, lyric, and blues, rhythm and blues, and all this kind of art to convey information, to convey culture in this case. We have a lot of period called the Beat Generation. The Beat Generation is a small group of art whose literature explore and influence the American culture in the post-World War II area. The Beats were again the product of their parents' generation, promote sex, music, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, we have here in this moment a lot of influence in the music. Okay, and the rock and roll, the ballad, and all this kind of music, and a very important group, musical group in this time, as the Beatles in England. The contemporary postmodernism. Okay, in this period, the influence by the study of media, language, and information technology is very important. Um, the postmodernism literature, especially, is marked by irony in the form of parody, unreliable narrator, absurdity, self-awareness, and deconstruction. This is a very important kind of element in this period. On the other hand, we have the next question, and we are talking about three literary elements. In this case, the first one is a plot. Okay, as we know, the plot is the author arrangement of event in the story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end in the end. The more specifically, the plot follows the fair track pyramid. That means exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and denouement. Okay, so we have type of plot. The type of plot can be the chronological order. Some story begin at the end, and some story begin in the middle of the themes. So as a second element in this very important topic is the setting. The setting is the place and the time of the story. It also includes the circumstances of the story, like the weather condition, the social class, etc. The character is another one and a very important element. In this case, the people or animals, themes, etc., present as people in literary work. Obviously, we have types of character. We have major and minor character, round and flat character, dynamic and static character, protagonist and antagonist. We have a round character, flat character, okay, dynamic character, static character. All of them are very important when we need to try to understand the protagonist and antagonist, okay, in the story. The characterization is another one. Refers to the method used by the writer to create his or her character. This characterization are revealed to us by means of the following techniques. Some of them as physical appearance, names, what the narrator tells us about them. Okay, we have another element, the point of view. The point of view is the angle or perspective from which the story is told. Who tell the story? The point of view is divided into two main types: the first person point of view and the third person point of view. And as example, the first person point of view is when the story told from the point of view of one of the character using the first person, I, I and I. Okay? I, me, mine, for example. The first person narrator can either be participant or non-participant in the action. And the another way to use the point of view is a third person. The story is told using a narrator who uses a third person pronoun such as he, she, his, her, they, etc. Third person point of view can be broken up into three different types: omniscient, limited omniscient, and objective. Okay, each one has a characteristic that is very important to understand the story. And as a last one, we have the element theme. The theme is the central idea or central message of the story. It usually contains some insight into the human condition, telling something about human life. Okay? In spite of the analysis of the two previous aspects, we have now to think about the contrast literally period from what I know on the past and what I guess will happen in the future. Okay, so this is a very important question, because if we make a review of all the period of the American literature and what we have right now, in this case, I will be very, how can I explain that? Very brave man. I will very brave man if I said we are losing the way to convey information to the next generation using literature. Okay, that is one point that I believe we are losing in all this, because if we remember the first period of the American literature, they do this activity using the oral history, convey information by oral. But now, in our days, we have a lot of technology, and from my point of view, I guess this is a problem where the new generation do not care the family background. Okay, so we need to think in this kind of element and focus in this idea to leave that information on books. Okay, using the way of the book, dance, the music, a good music. Okay, convey the value using this kind of art, I guess. Right. We have now a very interesting story named The Death of the Bold Turret Gunner by Randall Jarrell. Um, I think the poem is about the consequences of a war and breaking a bond between mother and child. Also, the cruel and bloody death of people that occur in war. People are part of or join the army without option, especially young teenagers, and sending them to the war is like aborting a baby or child. I take it is as a reference that the author of the poem lived that experience and is part of the army, specifically as a pilot in the gunner turret. He wrote down his experience and that of other right of the poem. All right, now making some analyze from the poem Night by Elie Wiesel. Okay, the message I consider very important in this story of a terrible human suffering is a way how the people uh, think about a political issue and, and a philosophy that destroy the world. Okay, and these kind of people suffering a lot in the concentration camp in the World War II as this Elie Wiesel. Okay, I don't remember the right place, but I think was in Birkenau, in Birkenau 1, Birkenau 2, that is in Poland, okay, where these people suffering a lot, and they were thinking about God, they were thinking about the family, they were exterminated by Nazis, okay, and the horrible situation in there, and how these people can go forward after this event in the World War II. So we still communicate and let us know this story to get it and try to dominate that idea and do not repeat it anymore. So when we talk about a noiseless flash from Hiroshima by John Hershey, we must to be able to understand uh, the power of the United States in the war in that moment. When they side drop bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, obviously they previously have a period of practices in in the US using bomb like that one. Okay, so when they drop in Japan and they finish the World War II, obviously the Japanese surrendered when they saw that smoke from on the sky and around 55 or 65,000 of people dead in a short period of time. That was a really advantage technology from that time. But now, uh, looking back, we know we are affected for that explosion in that moment, because the explosion in that moment was in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but that explosion uh, towards another places that I mean the superiority of the technology and the political of the U.S. in the war gain more force in this aspect. So um, it doesn't matter the distance of time from 1945 to now, because they are still using that uh, power to control area, to control the politics in too many ways, in so many places. All right, now we are talking about Everything Stuck to Him by Raymond Carver. What is the theme of the story, and what does the story reveal about the human condition? This is a very important question about this story. There may be two themes. One is about making the right choice, even if you can do something, and the other is about family love. Sometimes people change. People get bored of the daily routine, for example, taking care of the baby, going to work, and lose the passion for love. They look for new experiences, but not the best option. Now his life has changed, he has a family and responsibilities, and stuck to him. That is the way, the name of the story. Now we are following another very good story. Okay, in this case, Rule of the Game from Joy Luck Club by Amy Temi Tam. The question is toward the end of the story, Waverly imaginary opponent says, strongest wine cannot be seen. Where else in the story is that statement used? What do you think it means? Okay, the phrase strongest wine cannot be seen. It is used several times at the beginning, in the middle, and in the end of the story. We believe it is a metaphor about the various way in which problem can arise at any time, and how the rules we learn in our family are extremely useful when we apply them as a result of a combined effort to find a better way to out of them. All right, now the analysis of the fish by Elizabeth Bishop, okay, make us think about the clues suggest that the fish may have a symbolic meaning. What could the rainbow at the end mean? So at this point, the speaker senses that victory fills up the boat as she recognizes the 5 times that the old fish has defeated other fishermen, like ribbons won for this victory, and rainbow cause from the mixing of oil in the bilge of the boat spread its color. When the speaker said everything was rainbow, 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 she felt that the old winner deserved to be let go. Thus, the rainbow reminds the speaker of winning a war. And in her real release of the old fish, the rainbow comes to symbolize the renewal of life as is thus in nature. Okay, good. Talking about One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. In the first stanza, Bishop set out her intention. She seemed to affirm that loss is part of the human condition. We lose both significant and insignificant things constantly, and should thus accept this as a natural part of life, and even master this practice so as to remove any sensation of disaster we may take from him. These 2 points will be repeated throughout one art, so that emphasize them. There is a subtle change from the third to the fourth stanza, a perfect split in keeping the poem rigid structure. Almost imperceptibly, the speaker switches from addressing the reader to drawing on her own experience. It is here that Bishop begins to undermine her meticulous structural detail and carefully impassive tone. I lost my mother's watch. She states an admission that seemed to come from nowhere. However, to cautious Tom is disappearing. The inexplicable mention of this personal aspect of the speaker's life has added to the emotional state. As the stanza continues, it becomes clear that it is a further attempt to demonstrate the universality of loss. The picture becomes bigger and distance larger. The exclamation "and look" betrays yet more emotion, despite its appearance of hand tone. Now Bishop tells us to look to our losses on a bigger scale. The houses we live in, not so destructive except for the use of word love here. Indeed, these were just places we live in, and we nonetheless also love in them.